And so, rather than trying to improve and add value to the system through new AI features now, I argue it's time for Microsoft to stabilize, improve, and make the system more performant and more usable for power users like me and probably like you.
There's a man who spent years inside Microsoft building the tools that millions of people use every single day. He's not some internet critic with an axe to grind. He's not a tech blogger chasing clicks. He actually sat in the room. He wrote the code. He was there during the golden era of Windows, when Microsoft made software that people genuinely loved. And now he's publicly saying, in plain language, that what Microsoft is doing to Windows is wrong. He's saying it out loud. And Microsoft very much does not want you to hear it. His name is Dave Plummer. He built Windows Task Manager. He ported the classic Space Cadet pinball game. He worked directly on Windows XP, one of the most beloved operating systems ever made. When this man talks about Windows, he's not guessing. He lived it. And what he said in late 2025 landed like a bomb in tech circles, even if mainstream media barely covered it. Let's talk about what he actually said, and why it exposes everything that's gone wrong at Microsoft. The wake-up call from inside the building.
From Dave Plummer. This is the guy who created the Task Manager in Windows and has worked many years, including in the era of Windows XP. And he was explaining that Windows 11 needs what Windows XP received back in the day.
Dave Plummer said it plainly. It's time for Microsoft to have another XP SP2 moment. No more AI, no more features, just fixes. The register. That sentence is more damaging to Microsoft than any press release could be, because it's not coming from an outsider. It's coming from the person who helped make the operating system that defined a generation. And the fact that he felt the need to say it publicly tells you everything about how far Windows has fallen. What is an XP SP2 moment? Here's the quick version without the technical jargon. Back in 2003, a devastating computer virus, the blaster worm, hit millions of Windows XP computers worldwide. It was a disaster. When that happened, Microsoft set aside all feature work. For the next several months, all they did was improve security. They didn't add features. They fixed bugs, lots of bugs, until there weren't any left to fix. The result was Windows XP Service Pack 2, a version of Windows so stable, so clean, and so trustworthy that people kept using it for over a decade. Some still are. Windows latest. That's what Dave Plummer is asking for. Not a revolution, not a completely new operating system, just Microsoft stopping putting down the AI toys and fixing what's broken. His central message: no more AI, no more extra features, just fixes. It's time to make the system more stable, more productive, and more user-friendly. TechNet book. Microsoft hasn't done it. And the reason why reveals exactly what kind of company Microsoft has become. The operating system as a sales channel.
Today, an awful lot of software is sold on a different basis. Recurring subscriptions, monthly active users, engagement, feature velocity, crowd attachment, cross-sell opportunities, telemetry completeness, experimentation throughput. You can practically hear applause for them adding new capabilities, but nobody gets a standing ovation for cutting startup time in half unless it was so bad before that it threatened to churn the user base.
Plummer didn't just call for stability fixes. He went further, and what he said next is what Microsoft really doesn't want repeated. In his own words, "I think we've crossed the line over to where the operating system feels like a sales channel for all their other properties. And that's corrosive in a way that telemetry never will be. When the OS suggests you switch browsers after you explicitly chose another one, that's not onboarding. That's just disrespect. When the start menu shows sponsored apps, you put a price on my attention on my machine." XDA developers. Read that again. The man who helped build Windows is calling it disrespectful. He's saying Microsoft is showing ads inside the operating system you paid for on your computer, on your hardware, using your electricity, and charging you for the privilege. The start menu, the thing you've clicked 1,000 times before your first coffee of the morning, is now a billboard. Plummer also called out Windows 11 for treating users in what he described as mitten mode, a restrictive approach that treats experienced users like they need hand-holding while simultaneously serving them suggestions, sponsored apps, and constant nudges to use Microsoft's other products. XDA developers, this is the operating system of over 1 billion people. And according to the engineer who helped build its most beloved version, it's been turned into a product designed to serve Microsoft's business interests more than the people actually using it. The AI disaster nobody voted for.
Are you getting a little tired of Notepad lately and all the new features and functionality and bonus stuff and AI that's been added to it? Well, I know I do, because first of all, I want it to come up as a blank slate each time. I don't want my last session's notes coming up as the default when I open up Notepad. Second of all, I don't need tabs in Notepad. I'm not a complicated man. I just want one file at a time. Basically, I want Windows XP Notepad.
Plummer's criticism wasn't just about ads and settings. The bigger target was Microsoft's AI obsession specifically. The way the company shoved AI into every corner of Windows without asking whether users actually wanted it there. Microsoft placed Copilot buttons across built-in apps like Notepad, Paint, and File Explorer, even when the integrations were intrusive and added little to no real value. Think about that. Notepad, the simplest text editor on earth, the thing you open to jot down a quick note. Microsoft put an AI button in it. Nobody asked for this. The reaction from actual users wasn't confusion. It was fury. Windows latest. When Microsoft posted on social media claiming it heard that users wanted more Copilot at work, the response was immediate and brutal. No, you heard wrong. Literally no one asked for all this AI. In fact, everyone wants to know how to remove it, one user wrote. I find your detachment from reality disturbing, said another. An IT professional who had managed Windows servers for decades added that literally not a single IT professional wants Copilot integrated into Windows. Windows latest. It got so bad that when the president of Windows publicly talked about turning Windows into an agentic OS, meaning an operating system where AI agents run around doing things on your behalf without your direct instruction, he was met with thousands of negative replies and was forced to turn off replies on his own post. Windows latest. When the person running Windows can't take questions about Windows from the people using Windows, something has gone catastrophically wrong. The recall scandal. Surveillance disguised as a feature. The most damaging AI feature Microsoft tried to force onto users wasn't a button in Notepad. It was something called recall. The idea: recall would take screenshots of your computer screen every few seconds. Everything you looked at, every document you opened, every website you visited, every message you sent captured, stored, searchable. Microsoft called it a photographic memory for your computer. Once critics and users pointed out that having everything on your screen constantly recorded could be a major privacy violation, Microsoft was forced to delay the feature and eventually released it as an opt-in beta, still waiting to fully address the concerns people raised. TechRadar. But it didn't end there. More than a year after its launch, security researchers continued raising red flags about recall. A Swiss technologist released a proof-of-concept tool called Total Recall Reloaded on GitHub, demonstrating that the data recall stores could still be accessed by attackers despite Microsoft's security claims. GeekWire. Microsoft says recall is safe. Security researchers keep saying otherwise, and yet Microsoft kept pushing it. This is the feature Microsoft was using to sell people on buying new $999 plus computers. Buy a Copilot plus PC, they said. It has recall. It's the future. GeekWire. The future, it turns out, was an unfinished privacy nightmare that the company's own security community couldn't sign off on. Microsoft's own admission. Here's what makes this story even more remarkable. Under the weight of all this backlash from users, from engineers like Plummer, from the press, from IT professionals, Microsoft eventually broke. Pavan Davuluri, the president of Windows, made a public statement admitting the obvious. The feedback we're receiving from our community has been clear. We need to improve Windows in ways that are meaningful for people. He then promised that 2026 would bring a focus on addressing consistent pain points, improving system performance, reliability, and the overall experience. The point online. Read between the lines of that statement. The president of Windows is essentially admitting that Windows 11 failed to be meaningful to the people using it. That's not a minor course correction. That's an acknowledgement that the product was going in the wrong direction, probably for years. What started the seemingly boundless hatred toward Microsoft was their excessive Copilot push throughout Windows and their first-party apps, to the point where users came up with nicknames like microslop, forcing the company to ban that word in their own Discord server. Windows' latest, microslop. That's what a billion-dollar company's users started calling their operating system. And the company's response was to ban the word, not to fix the product. At least until they had no choice. What Dave Plummer's warning actually means. The engineers who built Windows at its best aren't confused about what went wrong. They watched it happen. They watched the company that once prioritized making the best possible operating system slowly shift into a company prioritizing how many subscription products and AI features it could push through the same interface. In 2026, Microsoft looks less like a platform steward and more like a company trying to squeeze every surface it owns for one more strategic advantage, usually AI-shaped, often at the expense of product quality. Kaio. Plummer's ask was simple. Just for one release, just till it doesn't suck, stop adding things and fix what's broken. Make the system more stable, more performant, more usable for power users who've been loyal for decades. Tech Radar. That is not a radical demand. That is the bare minimum you'd expect from a company selling software to over 1 billion people. And the fact that it had to come from a retired engineer posting on social media rather than from Microsoft's leadership says everything. No user ever said, "I want more tracking in my OS." No user ever said, "I want my OS to force me to use cloud saves." No user ever said, "I want my computer to take screenshots of my desktop every second." No user ever said, "My PC works fine, but I'd like to be forced into upgrading." These are Microsoft's priorities, not yours. Hacker News. Where this leaves you, Dave Plummer didn't just vent. He drew a map. He showed exactly where Microsoft lost the plot the moment the company stopped asking, "What does the user need?" and started asking, "What can we sell through the user's screen?" Windows XP worked because the people building it were obsessed with making it better for the person actually sitting in front of it. When the blaster worm hit, they stopped everything and fixed it. No revenue call, no AI strategy announcement, no social media post about the future of computing. They just fixed it. The man who lived that era is telling you, in public, that the current Microsoft couldn't find that version of itself, even with a map. That's what Microsoft doesn't want you to hear. Not because it's wrong, because it's exactly right. If this opened your eyes to what Windows has become, share it. Because Microsoft's earnings calls won't mention Dave Plummer. They won't mention Microslop. They won't mention the Windows boss who had to turn off his replies. But the engineers who built the thing you fell in love with, they're talking, and they're not pulling punches.